Hi everyone. So today we are going to focus on multiplying and dividing rational functions. So really practicing with polynomials that are in fraction form. So let's do a review of just fractions in general. How do you multiply fractions? Well, you just multiply the top, multiply the bottom. Done. Number 2, we're adding now. What do you need when you're adding fractions? You need a common denominator. I'll do this down here. 3 times 5 is 15. So I have to multiply the 3 by 5. Whatever I do to the bottom of a fraction, I have to do to the top. So 10 times 3 times 3. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 12. So we get 22 out of 15. All right, this one. Okay, so now this one, you can multiply across and then cancel. It's easier to cancel. Like, if you look at these, what do you notice? Like, I notice that 9 goes into 27 3 times. I also notice that 14 and 35 are multiples of 7. So I'm going to divide those by 7. I get 2 and I get 5. So now when I multiply across, I get 6 over 5. Significantly easier to cancel. Number 4, just like in number 2, we're going to add what is the common denominator. So this one, you don't have to multiply the 12 and the 4. 12 is a multiple of 4. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 3. So we get 5 over 12 plus 9 over 12, which is 14 over 12. So I'm going to write that as 7 over 6. I don't really like mixed numbers. I avoid them, but I do want to simplify. All right, so we basically did this when we were graphing. So when you want to simplify, you need to factor. When we are simplifying 10 over, say, 15, it's really, you want to think of it as 2 times 5, 3 times 5, and then those 5s cancel. So you really want, it needs to be in terms of multiplication. So we want to write these as multiplication. So x plus 4 times x minus 5, factor the top, factor the bottom. And then we have our x minus 5s cancel out. If we were graphing, that would be our whole. And we get x plus 4 over x plus 5. So depending on the worksheet, when you're doing these as worksheets, sometimes you'll see in the answer key x cannot equal -5, just to identify that domain and the fact that you can't have a 0 on the bottom. All right, now this is the tricky one though. We want to factor, but how do you factor the top? The bottom's easy, it's just a GCF. So is that top factorable? The first thing I do is I try to do by grouping. So I'm going to pull out x squared, and I get x plus 6. And then my GCF for the second 2 is 4, 3x plus 2. So that was not helpful. I cannot use a GCF. So we need to use guess and check, something like that. So normally I would use guess and check with synthetic division. However, I'm going to use a hint. We're going to use a hint here. What do we have in the denominator? We have x plus 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, okay, what x plus 2 times what? So you can either do long division or synthetic. You know what? I'm going to do synthetic. So remember with synthetic, we write our coefficients. So 1, 6, 12, 8. We change the sign. I'm checking for -2. Bring down that 1. -2 is 4. -8 is 4. -8 is 0. So I get x squared plus 4x plus 4 times x plus 2. So actually that numerator ends up being x plus 2 to the third. This is x plus 2 times x plus 2 over 4 times x plus 2. So Molly, my dog is right next to me trying to be annoying. So the x plus 2 cancels out one of them. So our final answer is x plus 2 quantity squared all over 4. And that's it. Okay. This is a little tricky one. Sorry, my dog is being annoying. But it's just factor cancel. All right, same idea. Now we're doing multiplication. The key here, just what can I factor, right? Can I factor x plus 8? No. 6 and 7 are constants. I can factor this to 2 times x plus 8. So then I look what cancels. The x plus 8s cancel. So what am I left with? 7 over 12. Be careful with those GCFs. Those are probably the thing that make this the most difficult. All right, now these are probably the hardest, not because they're actually like difficult to do, but because it's really easy to make silly mistakes and lose track of stuff. So I'm going to factor each of these, pull out that 4, and then the bottom right, I can factor that, x plus 8, x minus 3. If you need a review of factoring, do that thing, look that up. If you want, if you need help with that, send me an email. Okay, so we did the easy part. So there's a couple ways you can do the rest of it. Sometimes it's actually easier to simplify the top and then cancel. So we have on the top 8x cubed y cubed over 21x to the 4th y squared. So kind of putting all those together, especially if there's more than one. So y squared gets rid of that, and we're left with a 1. X cubed goes away, and we're left with a 1. 8 and 21 we can't do anything with. So the final answer is 8y on top, 21x times x plus 8. And that is the final answer. So there's a lot of like kind of you're cross-canceling. You could cross-cancel up here. It's just really easy to lose track. So sometimes I like to just kind of focus on the GCF parts by themselves. All right, pause the video and try this one on your own. So I'm going to factor the top, m minus 2, m minus 5, over 4 times m minus 5, times 5 over 6 times 2 minus m. All right, so let's see what cancels. We have our m minus 5s that cancel. Now, the question is, do those cancel? M minus 2 and 2 minus m. They do cancel. They actually cancel to -1. Imagine here if instead of taking out a 6, I took out -6. That would leave me with -2 plus m, which is -6 times m minus 2. So when you cancel and they're reversed, you're just going to throw a negative into the problem. Right? So they cancel to -1 instead of +1. So we are left with a 5 on top and 24 on the bottom, and then we need to throw a negative somewhere into the problem. It doesn't matter where. I usually put my negatives on top. All right, division. How do you divide fractions? So remember, you do 5x over 8. We change this to times, and we take the reciprocal. All right? So keep, change to times, flip your fraction. And then the only cancellation we can do is the 5s. So, oh wait, I'm lying. 5s, and then we can divide the top and bottom by 2. That leaves that to a 3. This is to a 4. So 3x squared over 4. All right, pause the video. These aren't hard. You just have to remember the division part. All right, so I'm going to factor x plus 4, x minus 1, all over 7, times, now remember we have to flip these, 5, and then 3 times x plus 4. Please actually flip them. I have some students that don't, and then they end up they're like, oh, well, I can cancel it as is, and they end up getting a wrong final answer. So please actually cancel stuff, or flip it. the second term. So x plus 4s are the only thing that cancel. So 5 times x minus 1 all over 21. All right, number 8, pause the video, try it on your own. Again, I'm going to start by factoring. These are not hard as long as you remember how to factor. Bottom one, that's a GCF with a GCF of x, so x plus 4, times, we're going to flip those two, x plus 4 over, my GCF is 2x, x minus 3. All right, so I have my x minus 3's cancel out, my x plus 4's cancel out. So we are left with x plus 3 on top and 2x squared on the bottom. And again, I was kind of ignoring this. You could say x cannot equal 0. All right, last problem. Pause the video. Now this one's a little tricky. So what ends up flipping? Does just this flip, or do both of these flip? That's the question. So think back to order of operations. If we have 10 divided by 2 times 5, what do? We go left to right. So this is 5 times 5, which is 25. It's not 1. So we're only going to flip the green, right? So m to the 4th, GCF, m times m minus 7. The second one is the one we're going to flip. M cubed goes on the bottom. M minus 7, m minus 1, factor the top. And then the last one stays in the same position. I have a GCF of 6. All right, let's see. What do we get that cancels? So I have m minus 1, m minus 1, m minus 7, m minus 7. All right, so I have m to the 4th is going to cancel out this m and that m cubed. So we are left with 7m over 6. And that's it. So your homework for the rest of the year is actually going to be in the book. So that is the page numbers. Let me know if you have questions. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.